There you go. That's some wonderful music right there from Mr. Chet Baker doing Pent Up House. And that's a fine tune written by Sonny Rollins. Going back to 1959, Chet Baker in Milan. Has a certain quality to it, and that's even better. I'll take that out of cue. And it's 10:04. You're listening to WCDB Albany, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to our august studios the fellows from Arch Stanton Quartet. And let's see if we got our happy phone system online. Mr. Ketterer, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Wow, the wonders of modern technology. Mr. Jim Ketterer, former drummer from the Arch Stanton Quartet, and calling in from Egypt. What time is it in Egypt, sir?
It is 4 p.m., and I'm very happy to be part of the Jazz Corner, at least by telephone.
That's great. That's great. Now, I realize that I'm remiss that these gentlemen, I did not tell them that they need to pull the microphones closer to them, so they're going to, but feel free to talk. But yes, you have that one, and you two gentlemen share that one since you're almost brothers. So, all right, and introduce yourselves so that the wonderful audience can know who we're talking to today from the Arch Stanton Quartet.
Hello, I am Chris Macchia.
And Terry Gordon. And Roger Noyes.
Great, and the other gentleman, we won't, since he's tardy, we won't get into that. Mr. Partyka, he's AWOL. He didn't make it back from the flight from Egypt. So we're talking to the Arch Stanton Quartet here in the Jazz Corner on WCDB Albany. And you guys had some exciting things shaking. You went off to the Middle East, which is not exactly a place most people shuffle off to these days. So that had to be some exciting stuff. And who wants to tell us a little bit about it? We'll be here for a while. Yeah. So we're going to play some music and talk about the trip and all those things. But what was the aegis of the trip?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is if there's anyone out there considering going to Egypt, so maybe Cairo, if it's something that's on your bucket list to go check out, you should go. You should really go. The security issues we keep hearing in the news are really overhyped. As long as you're tracking it and you're keeping up on the political developments, was one of the most amazing experiences we've had, and never felt more welcome. So that's the first thing to kind of get across to people.
Yes, and Roger Noyes, I guess, are you the de facto leader of the ensemble?
Well, Arch is really, but
I know.
yeah.
Well, we'll get. To
I do a lot of the booking.
Spokesman,
yeah.
So.
Well, we'll get to Mr. Arch Stanton and who he is in just a few minutes during our discussion. But those who are into spaghetti westerns will find that information near and dear to their heart. But the Arch Stanton Quartet, this CD, Along for the Ride, which we'll feature this morning, this is the new project. It's only been out a little while.
Yeah, since November is when we released it. So
Outstanding. New music, it says, from the Arch Stanton Quartet, Along for the Ride. And you gentlemen were here to talk about that not that long ago.
Yeah, that was a great experience. We're really excited to have this record out, and people are digging it. We've heard some good reviews, and
excellent. So now we got the band, we got the disc, and we have Mr. Jim Ketterer, who was a former Macchia at SUNY Central, and off he goes to Egypt. And Jim, so you took a gig over in Egypt, which is something in and of itself. And what's your gig over there?
I work for an organization called AMIDEAST, which is an American educational and cultural affairs organization that has offices across the Middle East and North Africa, and has been doing this for many, many decades. And we work very closely with the U.S. State Department, and one of the things we work on is cultural programming, like working with musicians and performances.
Right. And so that's exciting stuff, and it's a bit of a flavor change from kind of what you were doing before. And so off you went. And now you're ensconced in Egypt, and then all of a sudden you guys are chatting, and then so where does this come from? This trip to the Middle East?
Sure. Well, I had met the director of the Cairo Jazz Festival, Amro Salah, who is also a very good pianist and tours around the world with his group, Cassette. And I met with some of the other cultural organizations in Cairo, the Japan Foundation, the French Cultural Center, the Portuguese, and I thought, well, we ought to be bringing a group or two from the United States.
Right.
So I talked to the colleagues at the embassy, and we decided to bring two groups, and that AMIDEAST and the American University in Cairo would be supporting one of those groups, the Arch Stanton Quartet, and the other group that the embassy brought was KJ Dennert and her band.
Sure.
She's based in New York City.
Right. No, fine band. And so, so now when you guys, and by the way, we have some members of the Arch Stanton Quartet, 3.5, I guess, 3.5 members. It's Jim's over in Egypt. But Terry Gordon's here. He's a trumpet and flugelhorn and pocket trumpet. Mr. Roger Noyes, the guitarist. And now, Chris, I've always said Macchia. Is that how you pronounce it? Or how do you pronounce it?
It's kind of a long story, but I grew up pronouncing it Macchia.
Macchia.
But the correct Italian way is Macchia.
See, I'm half Italian. That's why I was pronouncing it Italian.
And at this point, as long as you get the Chris right, I'm happy.
Okay.
So,
and Mr. Partyka's AWOL. So now you guys are hanging out one day. So Jim, so who got the news, so to speak? Like, hey, you guys want to come to Egypt? Who'd you tell?
I think I might have written to Roger first. I tried to figure out who'd be the most likely to say yes quickest, and so and then I figured it'd be up to Roger to try to sell it to the rest of the guys, we just had to talk through. Like Roger said, some of the security issues, the way that it's perceived back in the U.S. versus the reality here.
Right.
And just a lot of logistics, and bringing a band over to Egypt and making all the performances work throughout a whole week of a tour really comes down to logistics.
Right. We're talking to Jim Ketterer on the phone from Egypt, and you're in Cairo?
I am right in the city of Cairo, 20 million of us.
Wow, that's pretty exciting stuff. And it's 6 o'clock in the evening. So, and what's the temperature?
4 o'clock, right.
Oh, 4 o'clock, my apologies. I had 6 in my brain for the hours difference. What's the temperature over there right now?
Today, I think, was in about the mid-80s. Wow. So it's a nice Cairo spring day.
Right.
In about a month and a half or so. It'll be about 100 every day. So it's okay now. It's beautiful weather.
Great. So you're working for AMIDEAST, and you said, hey, you met the director of the Cairo Jazz Fest, and he said we should bring some American jazz over there. And so you sent a note to Mr. Roger Noyes, the guitarist from Arch Stanton, and you were the drummer, a long-time drummer for the Arch Stanton Quartet.
I was. It was my honor to be in that chair, but also was my honor to hear Steven just rip it up when he was here. The band sounded great, and he sounded great. So,
and by the way, just to let folks know, we're talking about the Arch Stanton Quartet and their recent trip to Egypt to play in the Cairo Jazz Festival. What were the dates of the trip? Terry?
We left on March 19th, and we got back on March 26th. So it was a week we were there.
That's exciting stuff, and it was soup to nuts, right? The price was right.
Oh, the price was right. Yes. Yes, and I say, Roger,
I'm sorry. I got to, I'm sorry. It's my own lingo there. Yeah.
Roger, and I say as far as the rest of us are concerned, Roger certainly didn't have a hard sell to sell us about going over there. Once we talked through some of the security issues, we were sold, and it really was a trip of a lifetime.
And you all had your passports and everything, or did you have to go scramble? Anyone have to scramble?
I think Steven, the one who's not here right now, it was the one that had to get the passport last. So,
all right. Well, that's okay. Jim was
Bill,
there.
Bill, I will say that the one major issue that we had to deal with was when Mr. Gordon said to me that in addition to security, one of the main things he wanted to make sure was that he wasn't going to have to eat any food that was too weird. So I think we made him happy.
All right.
Egyptian food's a lot better than I thought it would be.
All right. Well, they say all roads lead to McDonald's. I'm sure there'll be a McDonald's someplace. Is there a McDonald's in Cairo?
There are many,
well, there you
but
go.
we didn't go to any of them now.
I wasn't expecting that, but I'm just saying, you know, if Mr. Gordon was going to be persnickety, he would have to have his. What? By the way, what do they call a Big Mac in Egypt? Is that one of those things?
It's just a Big Mac, and they've also got Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you know, it's kind of like American culinary diplomacy. But I think I'd rather have jazz represent our country than.
Well, I just always remember in Pulp Fiction when, you know, when they talk about the whatever the fast food was.
The Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese, yes, exactly. Mr. Macchia. So anyway, we're talking to Arch Stanton and the Quartet, along for the rides, their new disc, and off they went to Cairo. And since, you know, maybe we should give people a little flavor of the band before they all, you know, say, what? I thought we were listening to a jazz show. So speaking of Royale with cheese, there's a tune called Della Royale. If I remember correctly, this was someone's dog that unfortunately met its demise, and the song was named after it.
Yep, yeah, my Dalmatian Della. So
All
a little honorary
So you didn't think
yeah.
I was paying attention when you came?
No, I'm very impressed.
All right, great,
Remember.
Great. All right, so let's check it out. This is called Della Royale, Along for the Ride, and this is the Arch Stanton Quartet, fresh back from their trip to Egypt, and we'll put Mr. Ketterer in queue, so he, well, yeah, just... You'll have to just talk amongst yourselves over in Egypt, and we'll be right back right here on 90.9 FM, WCDB, Albany. There you go. That's the Arch Stanton Quartet and Della Royale, a tune written by Mr. Roger Noyes from the CD Along for the Ride. And that's on Wepa Records. Is it Wepa?
Wepa.
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 Wepa. Which is, I'm trying to remember. You told me what that was.
Yes, I did.
Right, hold on. Was it Crazy?
Like Yippee or Yahoo.
Oh, Yippee, Yahoo. Yeah, I knew it was Yahoo. Anyway, Terry Gordon. And would help if I had that out of cue. There you go. I think we're back. We're back. I don't know if anyone heard any of that, but it was. I'm like,
but it was amazing. Whatever you didn't hear was amazing.
Why does that sound so screwy? Hey, Jimmy, you there?
I am here.
Now, by the way, because this is the first, we have a whole brand new phone system here. That's why, if people are wondering, we're trying to get all the. By the way, can you hear the music when we have you in queue?
No, I couldn't hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. But you're familiar with it nonetheless. So
I am.
We'll have to have the technical people work on that so that you can hear the music when it's in queue. But in any event, we have Mr. Jim Ketterer on the phone from Cairo, Egypt, and it's approximately 4:21 in the afternoon on a nice spring Egyptian day in the low 80s. And sounds bucolic, if you will. It's very nice indeed. Jim Ketterer working for AMIDEAST. Used to work at SUNY Central, and you were the, let me try to remember this now. Were you the assistant chancellor for something or other?
I was the vice chancellor, and deputy provost.
Deputy provost, indeed. And then off you went to...
That's a nice title.
Yeah. By the way, what's your title now at AMIDEAST?
It's a country director and Arch Stanton tour manager.
All right. That's good. That's good. I'm sure there
I
was
think we have to give each other more titles.
Yes, I'm sure there was a VIG associated with that. Terry Gordon here, along with Mr. Roger Noyes and Chris Macchia.
Sounds good to me.
And that's how he pronounced it. All the Italians would say Macchia. And they have a new CD along for the ride. We heard Della Royale, named for Roger's former best friend, Della the Dalmatian. Yeah. And so you guys just came back from Egypt at the Cairo Jazz Festival. And so, obviously that's got to be a neat experience. One of you guys is going to tell us about that. So, that's got to be something pretty cool.
Well, actually, I'll turn this over to Chris, because I think you were saying the other day it was kind of interesting, our kind of a niche that we had in the festival.
Yeah.
And it was cool you talking about that the other day.
As far as the bands we saw, you say a jazz festival, I think everyone probably thinks, more traditional jazz, a lot of swing.
Right.
And the bands we saw, they were all great, but it was a lot of more very fusion-y stuff.
Okay.
And I think we were the only band I remember seeing. I didn't see any band that really swung or played anything with more blues feeling.
Right.
So we were almost the exotic band at this jazz festival, even though here we'd be pretty traditional.
So the festival itself, I know you guys were over there for a week traveling, but how long was the festival itself?
I think 3 days?
Yeah, the festival was 3 days. It started on Thursday evening, and it went Friday evening and Saturday evening. And we played, there were two festival sites. We played a set on Friday evening at an art center called Darb 1718, which was the second festival site. And then we played a set on Saturday at the main festival site.
Wow. So, and then the rest of the time you were just doing the hang.
Well, no, we actually, and maybe Jim can step in and talk about some of the other programming we did. One of the most amazing experiences was we performed for these students in the Access program, which is funded by the Department of State, but administered by AMIDEAST. And it was our chance to meet high school students, talk about American jazz, and sort of help them in their studies of English. And
so I think these are high school kids from Egypt.
Yeah. And actually, Jim, could you tell us a little bit more about that program? It was the most amazing part of the trip, to be honest.
Yeah, the band did workshops for two cohorts of these kids. One in Cairo, where we had about 180 kids and 10 or 15 of their teachers in an auditorium one afternoon, and they were very enthusiastic. They heard the band play. They heard about the history of jazz, the history of jazz diplomacy, and just some of the basics of what's going on in a jazz performance. And then we brought those kids over to the main site of the Jazz Festival, and they got to hear the band perform on the Jazz Festival stage, and which was exciting for the band, who fed off the enthusiasm, and I think it was exciting for everybody there to see the kids be so into it. The band also did a workshop in Alexandria, where AMIDEAST has another office, and they played a show that night. But before that, they had the kids from this Access program there in the audience.
Wow, that's pretty cool stuff. In speaking about jazz and jazz diplomat, I mean, the State Department has long had, especially during the Cold War, frankly, had a very strong program of sending jazz ambassadors, if you will, whether it was Louis Armstrong or Dizzy Gillespie, who have you, to travel literally the world, to go in behind the Iron Curtain, to go into the Middle East, to go to South America, to take jazz, this pure American art form, and take it to really across the world as a way to cross the cultural divide. So that's pretty neat. Now, you guys, so you get the call. Now you're going through all this stuff, and how much time between when you knew the gig was coming and when you went?
I think it was sometime in like early October or something. I got an email. I remember getting the email at school that day, and I was just couldn't think about anything else the rest of the day. I walked into high school band rehearsal, and I go, guys, I'm going to Egypt. Right. Holy cow.
Right. No, I mean, that's exciting. I mean, I was excited. I was like, wow, it's cool stuff. By the way, you're listening to the Saturday morning edition of Jazz with Bill McCann, and in the Jazz Corner, we have the 3/4 of the Arch Stanton Quartet, and they have a new CD out called Along for the Ride. And Mr. Terry Gordon, Roger Noyes, Chris Macchia, and Mr. Steven Partyka is AWOL. And on the phone from Cairo, Egypt, Mr. James Ketterer, who used to be in the drum chair for Arch Stanton. By the way, you can go to archstantonjazz.com for more information about the band, etc. But they just got back from a week traveling to and from Egypt, where they played in the Cairo Jazz Fest, and it was over the course of several days. The bands were really international in scope, right? I think that's what Jim was mentioning earlier. They're from several different countries, etc.
Yeah, I think, looking back at the website, I think there were 13 countries represented. You had Lithuania, Egypt, England, Canada, United States,
some of the listeners,
Japan, yeah.
If the website's still up, do you guys happen to remember what the name of the website was?
For the Jazz Fest?
Yeah.
I think it's CairoJazzFestival.com, but if you search on Google, it comes right up.
Yeah. There probably aren't a lot of other Cairo Jazz Festivals.
Right.
Yeah, it's the only one.
Cairo, New York.
Yeah, right.
Cairo, as they pronounce it. But, so you guys really jazz ambassadors. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, one of the coolest things is this view from the stage that we had. We're looking out, and the horizon is the Citadel, which is, Jim probably knows the history of the building better than I do. Yeah, it's this ancient structure, and then there's a graveyard right in front of it, this ancient graveyard, which is very fitting for our band name, because as you know...
Well, yes. Why don't you tell people about Arch Stanton? For those of you who are fans of the classic The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, starring Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, and...
Lee Van Cleef. Yeah. We remember last time we had trouble remembering that one.
And so Arch Stanton.
Yeah, our namesake is not to give away the plot line of the movie, but I guess I will. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen it yet, you should. But is the Arch Stanton is the name on the gravestone at the end of the movie, where in proximate location to where this treasure is buried. So he's kind of
that's a good way to hide the how the tie into the plot is.
Yeah.
Right. So that's it's a dead guy. It's a gravestone that says Arch Stanton.
Yeah. So and he's not a character in the movie, and he's not a character in the band. Although sometimes we kind of
you said
have honorary
Arches. We have referred to different people as Arch throughout the trip.
Well, haven't you said people have asked when's Arch showing up? Right?
Yeah. Actually, we would have this every now and then. We'd have a security guy from the government sort of involved in our trip, and we'd lovingly refer to him as Arch. So that's kind of a...
All right, well, we have 3/4 of the Arch Stanton Quartet and the former drummer, Mr. James Ketterer, who's calling in from Cairo in Egypt on a nice, balmy, wonderful spring day in the low 80s, and it's blue skies, right?
Yeah, it's almost always blue skies here, unless there's a sandstorm, which the band experienced on the day we went to see the pyramids.
Oh, you went to the pyramids?
Yes, that was our only touristy activity.
Any snakes? Do you see cobras? You guys see any cobras?
No, we saw no snake charmers over there.
Yeah.
That was one thing we didn't see.
No snake charmers? No souvenirs? I
saw
you wearing
souvenirs.
I saw the Cairo Jazz Festival T-shirt Terry was wearing the other night with the big band.
Yeah, I had to wear that.
Right.
I think you mentioned that picture, too. I was listening on the way in there. That we took in the sandstorm at the
Sphinx.
The Sphinx and the pyramids there.
That's got to be cool, huh? Yeah, they're all nodding their head, but this is radio, fellas.
Yes, it's very cool.
And we're talking about a picture, maybe describing it would be. But yeah, Bill mentioned earlier that there's this famous photograph of Louis Armstrong at the Sphinx. It was a State Department photo that was taken in the 1960s on that jazz ambassador tour that Armstrong took. And so we tried to find the roughly the exact location of that shot, and had Terry bringing his horn to near the Sphinx, and we took a great photo of it. So
pretty cool.
I think we got it pretty close to a match.
Yeah, you should print up a copy of that and frame it and put it on the wall. That's good.
I intend to do that.
Bill, let me just mention too that the original of that Louis Armstrong photo hangs in the U.S. Embassy here in Cairo.
Wow!
And we at AMIDEAST are going to frame a copy of Terry's photo and urge them to put it right next to Louis.
Well, I won't speculate on the over/under on that, but suffice it to say, but Terry will have one nonetheless. So Jim Ketterer on the phone from Cairo, Egypt, and since we're a jazz show, we might as well play. We have an actual a live recording from the festival that might be apropos. Now, this was during your main set. This was
the Saturday night set at the main festival site.
Right, and what's the tune we're going to hear?
Along for the Ride.
Oh, the title track. That's very good. So this is a live version of Along for the Ride, recorded live at the Cairo Jazz Fest March the 23rd. Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anything interesting about this particular track, or it's pretty straight?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's one of our more swinging tunes, and
Can you hear the kids in the background?
Yeah, there's some. It was interesting because of some of the things that we take for granted as far as jazz performance here. It took a while for some of the audience to warm up to clapping during after solos and things like that. So as the show progressed, this was one of our earlier tunes. I think the audience got a little wilder. So
all right, well, let's check it out right here. The Arch Stanton Quartet. Recorded live at Al Azhar. Did I say that right? How do you pronounce that?
Jim, how do you say that? Al Azhar?
Al Azhar Park.
Al Azhar Park. What he said. In Cairo, at the Cairo International Jazz Festival. Let's check it out right here on WCDB Albany.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
There you go. That's the Arch Stanton Quartet, recorded live at Al-Azhar Park in the Cairo International Jazz Fest back in March. March
Feels like it was so long ago.
It was so long ago. Yes. In the studio, we have three Fords. Uh-oh. Well, I got Mr. Jim Ketterer.
All right.
That's all right. That's all right. You're calling from another hemisphere, so that's okay. Terry Gordon in the house. Heard there on trumpet and flugelhorn. Roger Noyes on the guitar. Chris Macchia, as they pronounce it in his household, on the bass. Steve Partyka is AWOL, and on the phone calling from Cairo, Egypt, Mr. James Ketterer, who former drummer in the band, now working for AMIDEAST, and doing all sorts of wonderful things to bridge the cultural divide, as it were. And so you guys are over in Egypt, and this was on the Saturday, I guess, of the fest. So when you guys were not doing other gigs, I know you did the thing with the students. I remember I saw, and I'm trying to remember because you guys were posting pictures as you kind of went along on Facebook, and there was you guys did a gig at the embassy, right? Or was it in? I remember seeing something.
It was at the home of one of the top embassy personnel. It was an embassy-sponsored reception.
Yeah, I think it was the person who's in charge of cultural affairs at the embassy.
Was that a good gig? Was that you guys played at that, or are you just doing the hang?
We played at that. We played for about a half hour, and the KJ Dennert Band played for about a half an hour.
That's cool. So it was like a fancy reception.
Actually, the board they had at this for a house party was amazing. And actually,
you're talking about the board for
the setup was pretty out of control.
And overall, the sound guys that we dealt with at the jazz festival were like some of the. I mean,
they were good.
They were great, top notch.
Now,
and they were.
Let's go back to the more important thing. How were the vittles at the party?
I tried shawarma. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, we were all worried about Terry's culinary appetite, but he expanded his mind greatly.
Was he like one of those commercials, where he walks by the men's room and has to look like, should I go in or not? It was one of those moments.
And by the way, Jim not only used to play with us, he actually started the band. He's the one who originally got us all together. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, Jim, I'm sorry. I wasn't giving you proper kudos for being the founding mensch of the Arch Stanton Quartet. Since we're trying to, bridge all the cultures over there, I figure Egypt and mensch, said that Egypt, Israel kind of a thing. But anyway, so that's exciting stuff. And so you did not too much touristy stuff, it sounds like, but at least you did go.
We didn't have a lot of time to do. We had the one morning to go to the pyramids. The rest of the time, man, Jim was cracking a whip.
Yeah, well, he's So now those are pretty tall, right? The Great Pyramid of Giza? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, if you look at these, just the individual blocks are like half the size of a car, it seemed.
Right.
It was just amazing.
Slave labor, put them all in place. In the words of Ramses II, so let it be written. So let it be done. So, your brother. Anyway, so you guys over there, and did you just like walk around? I mean, can you go into them or the pyramids, or did you get to walk on top of them? How's that work, Jim? Can people climb the pyramids still, or is that verboten?
No, you can't climb the pyramids, although just in the past couple weeks there were some photos that were making the rounds of some Russians who apparently hid in the pyramid site until the guards went away, and they climbed to the top of the pyramids and took some amazing photos. But I'm happy to report that the Arch Stanton Quartet did not do that.
There was no cultural faux pas that you can disclose. No cultural faux pas that you can disclose otherwise. They were good ambassadors, is what you said.
They were very good ambassadors, and there were so many times where it felt like there was one obstacle after another. I mean, in all the months of lead up to just one challenge after another to address, even up to the point of the day that they were going to the airport to JFK, Terry's car went off the road in a snowstorm.
Wow.
We had other issues here, but we made it work.
Wow.
In fact, I would say, if anything, that was the only apparent hiccup on the whole trip. I mean, I know there was a lot of...
Otherwise, it would have been the Arch Stanton Trio. How many people were in Terry's car? Was it the whole band?
Just Terry at that point.
Yeah. All right. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'll strike that. The Arch Stanton Trio.
Well, I mean, it was really amazing. I know there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and Jim's staff were just tremendous. And I know that Jim and his staff had to deal with probably a lot of just logistical behind-the-scenes things to make this happen. But from our vantage point, really a totally smooth trip overall.
So you got it. So you did a thing at this with KJ Dennert, which is a fine band, and they did a thing. You guys played back to back at this party.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Vittles were pretty good, and Terry had some shawarma. What is shawarma, by the way?
It's some kind of meat that they cook, and then they scrape it off the. They scrape it and have some vegetables. I bet you Jim can describe it better than I can.
I'm thinking.
I like some kind of meat. I think that's a great description.
Right. Hey, Jim Ketterer on the phone from Cairo. You're listening to the Saturday morning edition of Jazz, by the way, at WCDB in the Jazz Corner. The members of the Arch Stanton Quartet, minus Steven Partyka, who's AWOL, and they went to Egypt to play at the Cairo Jazz Fest and did a bunch of neat stuff. So, Jim, is shawarma, for those of playing at home, is it one kind of meat always, or is it a variety of meats that could be called?
It can be a variety, and if you're down in New York, you can find all kinds of shawarma places. Highly recommend it. And I think there used to be some in Albany where you could get it. I can't think of one right now, but
right.
It's standard fare, and it's good stuff.
So
very delicious.
So this is a cultural experience for the band, and so you played, you interacted with the kids from run this program, the high school students, kind of as jazz ambassadors, and then offline, Jim was telling me that you guys, or Terry at least, recorded a wedding processional or some such thing, and that you guys were maybe thinking about maybe turning that into some kind of a jazz thing as a homage to your trip.
Oh, we were thinking about that. Yeah, I was pretty sick that night we were in Alexandria, so we finished up the gig and sent me back to the hotel early, which was rather fortuitous for his musical purpose, because I got in the room and I hear this loud music coming from the hall, and I go out there and here's this guy with a ney, which is like a Middle Eastern oboe, very loud and obnoxious and very cool.
So that's like a snake charmer's
that type of, yes,
okay.
Yes, and some drummers, and they were playing for a bridal party, descending the stairs, headed for the reception, and they played in the hall for quite a while. I went down, I don't care if I'm sick, when am I ever going to get a chance to hear this again? So I walked down and listened, and as I stood there, I go, wait a minute, I have a recorder back in the room. So I went and got it, and I went back and recorded about a minute and a half of it, and we'll pass it around. Who knows, we might all try to make something
so the wedding was
original out of that.
The reception was at the hotel you were in?
Yes.
Yeah, Terry got to hear that. We got to hear Gangnam Style very, very loud.
All right.
Yeah, the music got a little louder. As
it got different by the time we got back.
Yeah, I think at one point Jim and I went down to the reception desk, and Jim did his best Ian Faith impression from Spinal Tap and made them cut out the music. So
really,
yeah.
So much for the ambassador there.
The band has to sleep, man.
Yeah, the band has to sleep. So you were in when you got there. Where'd you go first when you got to Egypt?
I think the first thing we did,
we came on separate planes, and me and Roger, we got picked up at the airport and driven to the AMIDEAST offices,
Right.
where we got served very strong Turkish coffee, which revived us after our long travel.
That's good. That's good.
And
Is the coffee good there, Jim?
Coffee is really great. Yeah.
Good. And so you're doing so you get there, and so now who was that? Who went first?
it was me and Roger.
And where's Terry?
Stephen and I they had a direct flight. Stephen and I had a layover for an hour or so at Zurich, Switzerland, and then came in later.
Okay, and of course you got some chocolate in the duty-free shop to bring to Mr. Ketterer.
We got some chocolate on Swiss Air, which Stephen and I very flamboyantly ate in front of the rest of the guys after dinner that night.
There's a little bit of a point of contention in the band right now.
Egypt Air was great because it was a direct flight, but also they allow you to bring a lot of carry-on.
Yeah.
You know, like the restrictions aren't as strict. So Chris and I had to bring our bass and guitar, and we didn't want to check it. So Egypt Air was great about that, and that's why we took Egypt Air, and they were on Swiss Air. So.
Right, so they got the chocolate and didn't share.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So, Jim, it sounds like the band, not to put them on the spot, but I will, listening to the Saturday morning edition of Jazz. So what did the band bring you for hooking them up with this monster trip?
What did they bring me?
Yeah.
Joy and music.
All right.
And,
See, what a diplomat, man. Here I am. I'm trying to give them the guilt and all the things, Jim.
It was all good. Listen, I want to also just make sure that I put in a plug for the American University in Cairo,
Sure.
which was also a sponsor of their trip, and the band spent their whole first day there doing a performance and then talking to a class about jazz diplomacy, and then doing a workshop with the American University Jazz Ensemble and their director, Akram Sharkawi. It was, I think it was a really great first day, and the people there also helped out so much over the tour and to make the tour happen. So I want to make sure they're recognized. Sure.
No, it sounds like great stuff. Hey, let's give people another little flavor of some of this Arch Stanton quartets, because they're going, why do these people keep talking? This is a tune called Twilight Curves. Did you guys, tune written by Roger. What do you want to tell us about the tune, by the way?
It's a Latin tune. There's some, well, not to get too technical, but there's some odd 7-bar or 5-bar phrasing in there. So.
Did you feature this on the tour, on the trip?
No, actually, we didn't. I don't think we played this one at all.
All right,
Yeah.
well, that's good. Well, we'll talk about some of the things what you played when we come back. I know there's some interesting stories about that. Let's check out some more of the Arch Stanton Quartet right here on 90.9 FM WCDB Albany.
1, 2, 3.
All right, that's what happens. I was in Egypt time, and I hit the wrong button. So we'll go this way, and we'll hit this button. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. There you go. That's a tune called Twilight Curves. The Arch Stanton Quartet, along for the ride, their new disc on WAPA Records, which means Yahoo.
Yes, it does.
I learned my lesson. You're listening to the Saturday morning edition of Jazz with Bill McCann here on 90.9 FM, WCDB Albany, online at WCDBFM.com. A big hello to all the folks listening online from literally all over the world. And also joining us today from Cairo, Egypt, Mr. Jim Ketterer, who arranged for the band's trip to Egypt. But before we do that, we need to tell you we're here at the University at Albany, part of the State University of New York. We are funded by the Student Association here at the University at Albany, so we thank them for their support, and we thank you for making us a part of your day right here on 90.9 FM, WCDB Albany. And while you didn't play that tune, I remember seeing on Facebook that did you play? You played a tune. Was it Coltrane? You guys played some Coltrane after? Was it Naima or something like that?
Yeah, actually, there's a woman that works for the consulate, American consulate in Alexandria, named Naima, and her father's a jazz musician. Named her after the tune, and we decided in advance we'd perform it for her, and she said no one has ever done that before, which is kind of surprising. So she was very touched by that.
Wow. So, Jim, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, she was. She really was very, very touched, and I saw her after the fact, and she was still talking about it.
Now, did you guys record the gigs? I mean, other than on Terry's Gizmo?
It was all on my Gizmo.
Right.
And, yeah, I recorded everything I could. That little recorder does a nice job.
Yeah, it's a far cry from the old cassette decks. So.
Oh, yeah, that's what I moved up to this from, and it's night and day.
It's amazing. They're tiny little instruments, but they do wonders.
Yeah.
So we're talking to 3/4 of the Arch Stanton. Uh-oh. Mr. Ketterer bailed out. We'll have to have him call back in. And we'll drop that. And then, hopefully he'll join us. We'll get him back. When you hear that, that's an ominous tone.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep. In any event, so we're joined by 3/4 of the Arch Stanton Quartet. Mr. Steven Partyka is. Let's get back, Mr. Ketterer here. Hey, Jimmy, there?
I am here.
Yeah, well, we heard the ominous tone of beep, beep, beep. We knew you were done. But Jim Ketterer back from Egypt. And we were just mentioning that we have 3/4 of the Arch Stanton Quartet. Steven Partyka is AWOL. But we have Mr. Chris Macchia on the bass, Roger Noyes on guitar, and Terry Gordon on trumpet, flugelhorn, and pocket trumpet. Did you bring all three, or just...
I had the pocket trumpet in the suitcase and then took it out so that I would be sure and make it under the weight limit for the
So when you
baggage.
took that out, though, the pocket trumpet, did they ask you where your clown shoes were?
I took it out at home before I left.
All right, very good. Very good. Yeah, that's for all
Well, Bill, if I could also just let everybody know, too, that one little glitch we had was having Terry get his trumpet and flugelhorn into the hotel when he arrived.
I heard there were some difficulties
concerns
with instruments. Yeah.
Yeah, Roger's guitar, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I understand that apparently a lot of people will hire bands to have impromptu hotel room parties, and so the hotel, I guess, wanted to prevent that from happening with the august Arch Stanton Quartet. So,
Yeah, that was one of the many moments when Jim's tour manager hat really helped out. And
Jim, I heard kudos, by the way, offline that you were like chief cook and bottle washer, and I guess there was a potential altercation concerning union membership that I heard you handled grandly.
Yeah, there was every day there was a drama, and drummers need to learn to multitask anyway. So when these guys showed up, we're not entirely sure they really were with the union, but they were persistent. The show must go on. The guys hit the stage. They had a full house, and it went very well.
Yeah, we're talking to Jim Ketterer live from Cairo, Egypt, and he was the impresario behind getting the Arch Stanton Quartet to go play at the Cairo Jazz Festival, the founder of the Arch Stanton Quartet, getting the boys from the Capital District of New York to go play with really an international cast of bands from all over the world, and from the United States, KJ Dennert, who has quite the following. So that's some neat stuff. Do you guys get to do the hang with any of these other musicians?
A little bit here and there. We actually met a great marimba player from Japan in the airport. She kind of saw our instruments and honed in on us. And
so she was going to the gig.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. But
and was she in a particular band? Did you want to give them a shout out, or
We actually didn't get to check it. Marimba is the band. We didn't get to check them out. I think Steve Gadd's son plays drums for them, so I think he was there, but we didn't get to see him or them.
So he's got some percussion blood in the veins.
Yeah, well, I've seen. The funny thing is, I saw the performances, the band's performances online. I was like wowed by it, but we didn't get a chance to see them while we were there because of just conflicting schedules. So, but
you got to earn you couldn't just have you go do an hour on Friday, an hour on Saturday. Jim had to put you to work.
Yeah.
You had to earn your vittles. You had to go and wave the flag, as it were, right, Jim?
Absolutely. These guys they had to earn their trip here, but they did many times over, and we're very happy to have them here. The embassy was thrilled, the consulate, the university. They left with a lot of happy people.
And who was the primary sponsor of their trip? Was it AMIDEAST, your organization, or was it the State Department, or was some other organization?
It was all three of us, kind of each taking a third. The State Department, AMIDEAST, and the American University.
Wow, that's good. Excellent. So I'll give each of you a chance to recollect on any one particular thing that really was the highlight of your trip. Why don't we start with Steve? Or Chris, I should say. Steve, I got Steve on the brain. He's not even here, just causing me aggravation.
I think my personal highlight was the playing for the Access students in Cairo. They were just so enthusiastic, and I'm in tons of pictures on Facebook now of all these kids, and they were just so happy to meet us and talk to us, and so enthusiastic.
Were any other musicians? Did anyone get up and jam or anything like that?
Not at that particular performance.
Right.
When we talked to them, some had asked, specifically musical questions, so I'm assuming they were musicians, but just the general vibe of them being so happy to be with us. And
had you traveled abroad, or was this your first trip?
I've done a little playing down in the Virgin Islands. I used to go down there and tour, and I've been over to Ireland, but this is definitely the most exotic trip I've ever taken, and I hope to go back.
Right, and so now when you fly in, when you went to the pyramids or whatever, I mean, does it really just beyond your expectation, or was it like a wow? I know you had a sandstorm, so that'd be a little bit of a drag. But other than that, I mean, was it like, wow? Was it one of those moments?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was definitely a wow moment. And at the time, I had a very thick beard, so all the locals
that's what threw me.
Very happy.
That's right, because I'm just there's something different about this dude. What happened to him?
The locals are very happy about my beard and appearance. That was fun, too.
Right. Well, that's cool. Do you get any time at the pool?
No. I think we all pack bathing suits, but cultural diplomacy ain't easy, so we got a lot of work to do.
So, all right. So, Terry, what do you want to tell us? Other than you ate some food and your wife says you're a pain in the neck when it comes to cooking.
Kof is good, and I love my wife.
Yeah.
The first thing that enters my mind when you ask what the biggest impression and memory of the trip is exactly what Chris said, working with those Access students and the enthusiasm they showed. Everybody wanted their picture. I mean, I signed arms and shirts. It's like, really, you want me to sign your arm? Yes. So but the other thing is we met so many really, really nice people there. Not just the kids, but Jim's crew and everybody we ran into. Smiling faces, welcoming us. We met a lot of really, really nice folks over there. I'm really glad we were able to do it.
So it's a life experience.
Oh, definitely.
Mr. Noyes?
Yeah, I think along those same lines, I think personally I wanted to learn more about Egyptian culture than I did, partly because everybody was so interested in American jazz, what we were doing, just learning about America, learning about us. And it was just nice to be that welcomed. And the Access students were probably the biggest example of that. So it would have been great to have a little bit more time to have more of an exchange, but on a level where we could have learned more about Egyptian culture and even Egyptian music especially. But the level of welcome that we got was just overwhelming. It was really great.
Was it like nonstop from the minute you sat down at the airport until the end, or did it really not all sink in until you were back in the Capital District?
You mean the experience overall?
Thing,
yeah.
Right.
Well, one of the first things you get there and we get a driver that's taking us to AMIDEAST in the case of me and Chris.
Jim didn't meet at the airport?
Nah, yeah, we had.
Jim, what happened with that, bro? Aren't you supposed to go with a basket of oranges and things like that? Isn't there like an Egyptian tradition or something, Jim?
We sent some pros to pick them up.
They were great.
I think sending a driver is the tradition.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
These guys were good. They knew how to negotiate that crazy Cairo traffic.
Yeah, so that's that's the biggest thing you notice right away. It's like, wow, this
a lot of motor scooters and things like that.
Yeah, and like 4 people on a motorcycle without helmets, and but it was wild to see. And it's like that's the first, and then once you see that, then everything else seemed to be easier. Because that's sort of the shock factor of the traffic, the little bit of excitement, a little slightly chaotic nature of traveling there, but it's exciting.
So
and
the drivers knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah, they were great. Yeah.
Right. So Jim, what do you want to tell us? I mean, what did you take out of the whole thing, and what news do you have of future opportunities for struggling jazz DJs to carry suitcases to Egypt?
Yeah, well, I think that the thing I do take from it is that the success was so apparent to everybody involved, including my colleagues who run AMIDEAST offices in other countries, that we're already talking with our respective embassies. We'd like next year to see if we can not only bring the band back, but have this be a multi-country tour.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Maybe add in Tunisia and Jordan. Stretch out the time a little bit more so the guys can also experience more of the culture and hospitality in the region. But the embassy really wants to make this happen again, and as does AMIDEAST.
As do we.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. So, Jim, and tell us again a little bit more about AMIDEAST and the work that you do there.
Yeah, we are working on, as you said, Bill, bridging the cultural ties between the Middle East, North Africa on one side, and the United States on the other. And we do that through educational programs. We support a lot of scholarships. We bring Americans here. We send Egyptians to the U.S. to study, including to the various SUNY schools and the University at Albany. We have high school programs, we have training programs, we have our cultural programs. We had a string quartet at AMIDEAST today playing for the Access students. So we think, education and cultural affairs are an important part of that bridge. It's not just politics, and it shouldn't just be politics.
That's great. Well, when you develop that jazz history / DJ training course that you need someone to come over, I'd be happy to consult with you on that. So in any event,
be careful of what you wish for.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. So this is, I have to tell you, I wasn't even there, and I'm excited about it. I mean, it sounds like a really cool, just a neat. Look, any one of my friends will tell you, I always say that someday you're going to be in the box. And I think that when life presents you opportunities, you have to take advantage of them, because life's just way too short, And so here out of the blue, you get this opportunity. I mean, it's got to be. I can't imagine you even hesitated for a second.
Not really.
No, it wasn't a hard sell to get us to go.
Right. Were there any,
no one reminisces about the things
they
didn't do.
Were there any spousal jealousies?
I think there may have been some not necessarily jealousy, but kind of maybe a little fearfulness for the security things that we talked about, that kind of stuff.
But it sounds like worse for the wear.
No, it worked out. My girlfriend Carrie was very eventually very happy that I was able to have the experience, but I think she would have loved to have gone. So.
Well, in all seriousness, I mean, Jim, you've been over there for quite a while now. I mean, how long has it been now? Has it been
coming up on 2 years?
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, that's and if I recall, you had been traveling there with some regard in the past. Is that correct?
That's true. For my previous job at SUNY as the head of the Center for International Development, I did a lot of traveling to the region, and at different points I lived in Morocco and I lived in Tunisia. So it's been a great opportunity to come back to the Middle East and live here in, what are really fascinating times in the wake of the Egyptian Revolution that's over 2 years ago, and the changes that are sweeping across the whole region. So, to have the band come here, to have the Jazz Festival happen amidst all those changes and challenges made it even more dramatic.
Right. Well, do you want to give, if people want to find out more about AMIDEAST and your programs, is there a website you could send them to?
There is. It's AMIDEAST.org. That's AMIDEAST, AMIDEAST.org.
Oh, good. Well, that's, hey, it's really neat having you call in today from literally halfway around the world. The wonders of modern technology with the Internet and access that people have, instant access to all sorts of things through technology. It is pretty amazing that someone a half a century ago wouldn't have really have had this opportunity to do what we're doing here today. So that's kind of neat.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm also happy to say that even though I've moved to Egypt, I can brighten up my Saturday afternoons with a little jazz with Bill McCann many weekends.
Well, that's very kind of you, sir. Well, Mr. Jim Ketterer, we thank you so very much for joining us from Egypt, from Cairo, and again, you can check him out online at AMIDEAST. Is it ORG?
It's ORG, right?
Great, and they can find out all about that, and. If people want to find out or if people want to communicate with you, I'm sure they could send you emails and things like that if they had any specific questions.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, James, we appreciate it. On behalf of the people of the state of New York, we want to thank you, as always, for your kindnesses and courtesies, brother.
Thanks very much, and keep everything happening in the Jazz Corner.
All right, brother. Peace and love, man. Jim Ketterer, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, fellas. That's you guys. That's a solid man.
Yeah,
he's
the real deal, man.
No, I've known Jim for a long time. He and actually a former WCDB Jim Udemark. They're good friends and doing all those great things. So that's great. So if you guys can pull the trigger on that again next year, that's awesome.
Absolutely,
especially if you're going to do other gigs. You could do a literal night in Tunisia.
Yeah. The Naima thing was great, but doing a night in Tunisia might, it'll be right up there.
Exactly. So. Well, gentlemen, we have. Again, you'll have to tell Mr. Partyka that he was out looking in. We don't know where he is even now. Probably sleeping.
Yeah, drummers.
But Terry Gordon, Roger Noyes, Chris Macchia. Although my Italian, I took Italian. I'm half Italian.
You could say Macchia if you want. It's up to you.
That's the way I say it from stage, and I was like, I'm just going with the.
I'll work with you on that.
Well, I have an Uncle Mario and a cousin Carmine. They would pronounce it Macchia.
Yeah.
My years of Italian class would tell me Macchia. I just can't do it the other way. So anyway, but I'll do it. In any event, gentlemen, we thank you so very much for coming. The new CD is called the Arch Stanton Quartet, Along for the Ride. And they were just in Egypt at the Cairo Jazz Fest. You can go to, you can Google Cairo Jazz Festival if you want to check out the different bands. And sounds like you guys had a trip.
Trip of a lifetime.
Of
a lifetime.
Until next year.
Until next year. So I like your thinking, man. He's like a dog on a stake. Man. He's not letting that go.
I think by day 2, I was already making plans for the next trip.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that before that trip was done.
What's the deal with the drinking the water? You drink the water, or are you supposed to just drink Coke or something like that?
No, bottled water. You gotta no, not even ice cubes really in a drink. So be careful.
But I slipped a few times, and I accidentally had some ice in my drink once or twice, and brushed my teeth with the tap water, and I felt fine.
And you are one that didn't get sick.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Terry, as his wife says, he's a little... oh, wait, I see there might be a message here from Terry's wife. She says, Terry, I love you. And even that's what she said. She said, I love you, too. All right, well, that's good. That's good. A little less. That's nice. Now Terry was telling me that you were going to take your wife out to a nice dinner tonight, and just to thank her for letting you gallivant halfway around the world.
She knows better than that because I've got a gig in Springfield, Massachusetts this afternoon.
Speaking of which, so before we go, seriously, did you guys? What do you got coming? Anything you want to tell us about before you go?
The next the next gig we have booked is until June, I think. It's June.
No, we have May 11th.
May 11th.
At 9 Maple.
They weren't telling you about that one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's
since
right,
you
yeah,
shaved the beard.
I'm out of the loop now.
All right, and what about now, Terry? You work frequently. And,
Yeah, my group will be at 9 Maple, the Terry Gordon Quintet at 9 Maple on April 20th.
Right, and you said you're working tonight in Springfield, Massachusetts?
Yeah, that's a thing with a drum and bugle corps thing called Capitol Brass.
All right. Is that like a big group?
Medium-sized group.
Is that like a big in the Armory or something like that? It's one of those big to-dos?
I'm not sure where we're playing. I have the address, but I don't know what kind of a building it is.
It just gets you. All right.
And I'll be in New Paltz tonight at Bacchus. Definitely not playing jazz, but if you like to dance, it's worth coming to check out.
What is Bacchus?
It's a bar down in New Paltz.
Okay,
I'll be playing with a band called Snow Bear.
Snow Bear?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, what kind of music does Snow Bear play?
I guess we call ourselves garage disco.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Actually, so a lot of people listening to the show are probably from the disco era, so they would probably they might want to part too. And Mr. Noyes?
I guess I think May 11th is my next engagement, so 9 Maple. Yeah.
Unless you want to tell your girlfriend something special in the air since you have a particular moment.
Yeah, I should.
But Terry stepped in.
Bill, I should probably mention that Empire Jazz Orchestra concert coming up as well with Claudio Roditi.
Right, that is on April the 16th at the Carl B. Taylor Community Auditorium. Claudio Roditi is part of the EJO's Jazz Master Series. In any event, so tell us about Modest Sleuthing, our out tune, as it were.
This is one of our more funkier groove kind of tunes, and we'll just let the music speak for itself, I guess.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, thank you so very much. We appreciate you coming by, and if you head over again next year, assuming I don't go with you, you'll have to come back and tell us all about it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
fellas,
Bill.
let's check it out right here on WCDB.